Hi, my name is Anthony Okuchi, and this is my introduction of the concept of intelligence, IQ, or otherwise known as intelligence quotient, emotional intelligence, EQ, which is sometimes referred to as EI, and social intelligence, or SI. So why are these concepts so important in the workplace? This concept is so critical in having good relationships with others. It creates better teams, more engaged organizations, and generally contributes to personal happiness. What we also see with these concepts is that they encourage creativity and a really positive mindset. So a much healthier mindset in life. So let's talk about these three concepts. So what defines someone as intelligent? The current theory believes that there are a number of contributing concepts that make someone smart. The first construct is IQ. And IQ is sometimes referred to being book smart. A person who is able to use logic and facts to answer questions and is derived from a number of standardized tests that have been developed over the years. An example of someone with high IQ would be Spock in Star Trek, or Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein, who were reportedly having IQs in the 160 range. So now that we've got understanding IQ and what makes people smart, it's not enough just to be book smart. What we see in the workplace is an important concept is to be really smart in the workplace, and what we're really centering on focus is the second construct, which is called EQ, or emotional intelligence. EQ is made up of 4 levels as defined by Daniel Goleman, is the author that I'll use here. The first level is called self-awareness, that you're aware of the emotional state you're in. The second level is called self-management, which you're able to manage your own emotional state. Third is social awareness. You're actually able to observe people around you and what kind of emotional state they're in. And then fourth, concept of relationship management, or level 4, where you are now able to manage others' emotional states. And these are the 4 tiers as defined by Daniel Goleman. And I think his model is actually pretty effective at describing emotional intelligence in a relatively simple way and an easy way for all of us to understand. Sometimes students always come up to me and ask me, well, I did the survey on EQ, but it shows that I'm really good at self-management, but I'm not very good at self-awareness. So what is up with the fact that I'm strong at level 2, but terrible at level 1? And that is true. You can actually have strong self-management, but also sometimes be very poor at being aware of your emotional state. When it comes to organizational behavior, I also would like to describe Daniel Goleman's theory in these 4 concepts of the first tier is when you're managing yourself and one other person. The second tier is really the more complex category, which is you're able to now manage teams of people, like for example, a group of 10 people. And the third tier is you're able to manage organizations, like the role of a CEO or the board chair, with your messaging to manage the emotional state of your organizations. The wonderful thing about EQ is that through training, coaching, and feedback, it can improve. We've seen the research that it does. And even if we do nothing, the old adage is we get older and wiser holds true. The research shows that getting older improves EQ. 2 of the best books that I've really found on this topic, found useful on the topic of EQ, is Travis Bradbury's book on emotional intelligence, which you can see right here. He wrote this book in 2009, and the reason why I like it so much is it has a survey which you rip out of the back here, and you fill it out, and it gives you an EQ survey. But today, with the internet being so proficient in creating EQ surveys, you can largely find these surveys online. The value of Travis's book is really just the work tools that come along with it to help improve your EQ. Then the second book that I also wanted to share was that I've come across is called the Eq Fitness Handbook. It was written by Jan Johnson, written in 2010, and it's a great workbook because what it does is allow you to go through each section, understand your EQ, but also some practices that you might want to implement for yourself to help improve and practice your EQ. An example of, I should also share that when it comes to EQ, a good example of that would be the fictional character from Yoda from Star Wars, or characters in that recent movie from Pixar called Inside Out. And that's a great example of how EQ works within your mind. The next category also would like the third construct is SQ, social intelligence. It's a relatively recent concept that's being explored in literature at the moment. there's less research on the subject to date, and it's largely exploratory. So I won't comment on the validity of this yet because there's not a lot of discussion happening on this subject to date. But I'll share with you some recent books on the topic. One is by Daniel Goleman, who speaks to the concept of social intelligence. He wrote this book in 2006 as a kind of follow-up to his previous book on emotional intelligence. And what Daniel Goleman talks about in this book is that it comes down to social awareness and also social facility. When he'll describe social awareness as the ability to have primal empathy, which he describes as feeling with others, attunement, listening with full receptivity to others, empathy, accuracy, understanding what another person is thinking, and social cognition, which is knowing how the social world works. The second concept of social facility is creating smooth social interactions in the workplace. For example, synchronicity, which he calls interacting smoothly, self-presentation, presenting ourselves effectively, influence, shaping the outcomes of social interactions, and concern, caring about others, and also acting accordingly in the organization. So it's a good read. I really enjoyed learning more about what Daniel Goleman has really spoken to as an expansion of EQ and where we need to go with social intelligence. And the next book that's really popular right now is written by Carl Albrecht, wrote this book and also in 2006, who describes social intelligence using the acronym called SPACE, which is stands for situational awareness, P is for presence, A is for authenticity, C is for clarity, and E is for empathy. And so these are just some examples of some books out there that really explore the idea of how to improve your workplace intelligence through intelligence, EQ, social intelligence. And some other books that I also wanted to talk about was some other viewpoints is I'm going to put a link in the description of this video below, which talks about Brene Brown, who did some recent research on the difference between sympathy and empathy, and which RSA animated produced into a really strong visual and an animation. And it talks about how important we need to understand the differences between sympathy and empathy, because many of us default to the concept of sympathy. And Brene Brown, I won't describe it here, but Brene Brown does a fantastic description of that, which you can watch below. And the last one I would also suggest is, if you're looking to improve your EQ, this book by Roman on empathy is a great book. There's a lot of YouTube videos that he does. RSA Animate also did another video on this as well. And Roman does a fantastic job of explaining what is empathy and how to build it and what to do, how to create it in your life. So hope these research sources are helpful for you, and hopefully it was helpful for describing what is EQ and putting some words behind it so you can understand these concepts a little bit better. So hope you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you soon.